we are going to study about the thalamus, its nuclei, and its various connections, afferent and the efferent. Now I have represented thalamus, which is roughly an egg-shaped gray matter, which is a part of the thalamus, and it is divided into three portions: the anterior portion, the medial portion, and the lateral portion by the internal medullary lamina, which I have represented via the green color, which is roughly an Y-shaped structure, Y-shaped white matter structure of the thalamus. Now we are going to name the nucleus. This is this is the anterior end. This is the anterior end, and this is the posterior end. And now we are going to name the nucleuses by understanding the dimension of the thalamus. We have established this portion as the anterior and this portion as the posterior. Now, since it is anterior, the portion between the angled portion, this Y portion, this is known as the anterior nucleus. And since this is the medial portion, we can call it the dorsomedial portion. And since it is the posterior part, you can remember it as a P, and P, pulvinar. You can remember like this. You can remember like this. So I'm going to rub this portion too, and the two overhanging structures. This is known as the medial geniculate body, and this is known as the lateral geniculate body. And the lateral portion is further divided into the lateral part and the ventral part. The above portion is the lateral part, which we can name this the lateral dorsal and the lateral posterior nucleus. And in ventral portion we can name it, since it is near the anterior port, it is ventral anterior. Then we have the ventral lateral, and since this portion is known as the ventral posterior, and the above and further divided into VPL, ventral posterolateral, and ventral posterior medial nucleus. Now we are going to study the afferent and the efferent connections. I'm going to represent the afferent by the green color. To anterior nucleus, the connections comes from the hypothalamus, from the mammillary body via mammillothalamic tract. And the impulses and the efferent impulses I represented by the red line, and the impulses from the anterior nucleus goes to the cingulate gyrus. And anterior nucleus is the part of the Papez circuit, which has the function for the recent memory integration, recent memory formation. We are going to further study the Papez circuit. This is known as the Papez circuit. The information from the hippocampus reaches the anterior nucleus, which we just established as the part of the circuit. Now we are going to see the circuit. It starts from the hippocampus and it reaches the fornix, and via the fornix it reaches to the mammillary body, and from the mammillary body to the anterior nucleus via the mammillothalamic tract. And since the efferent reaches the cingulate gyrus, and via the cingulate gyrus it reaches to the hippocampus, thus completing the circuit, and its function is the recent memory integration. Now we are going to study the dorsal medial nucleus. From the afferent signals to the dorsal medial. The afferent signals from the dorsal medial. It comes from the amyloid body, amyloid complex, amyloid body, and also the other thalamic nuclei. And the efferent signals from the dorsal medial reaches to the prefrontal. It reaches to the prefrontal areas, prefrontal areas known as the area 9, 10, 11 and 12. Prefrontal area known as the area 9, 10, 11 and 12. This is this. Now about the ventral anterior. Ventral anterior receives these impulses from the substantia nigra and also from the globus pallidus. And also in ventral lateral, it also receives impulses from the substantia nigra and globus pallidus, plus it receives signals from the cerebellum and the red nucleus. Both the impulses from the ventral anterior and the ventral lateral goes to the area 4 and 6, which is responsible for the motor functions, for the motor activity. Now VPL and VPM. VPL receives its impulses from the medial lemniscus, medial and spinal lemniscus, which are also known as the spinothalamic tracts and the dorsal tracts, the ascending sensory tracts. And BPM receives its impulses from the trigeminal lemniscus. Lemniscus is known as the ribbon or band-like structure, and the solitariothalamic tract, which is a fancy way to say gustation, and which is also more fancy, so we'll stick to the taste. And both the efferent signals from these two, which is the sensory area, which is the area 3, 1 and 2. Now about the lateral dorsal. It also receives its impulse from the mammillothalamic tract, and the efferent impulses also goes to the cingulate gyrus. Since it is near the anterior nucleus, it has connection with it. And as for the lateral posterior, it receives its impulses from the medial genicular body, lateral genicular body, and the ventral posterior regions, and the efferent signal goes to the superior parietal lobule, which is the area 5 and 7. And as for the pulvinar, it also receives its signals from the middle genicular body, the lateral genicular body, these ventral posterior regions, and the efferent impulses goes to the inferior parietal lobule, which consists of area number 40. And we have remained with these two oval structures, medial genicular body and the lateral genicular body. Medial genicular body is responsible for audition, and the lateral genicular body is responsible for vision. So the auditory tract is the efferent, that is the lateral lemniscus, or you could just say auditory tract. And the efferent connection goes to the area number 41 and 42, which is the primary auditory sensation area, the auditory integrating area. And as for the lateral, it is known, the efferent is the optic tract, and the impulses and the afferent impulses goes to the area number 17. So these are the nucleuses and their afferent and efferent connections. So we have to learn to relate with the certain regions such as the superior parietal lobule, the inferior parietal lobule with the areas number, and also the prefrontal area number, and area 4-6 for the primary motor activity, area 3-1-2 for the sensation. So this is the thalamus. We have established the Papa circuit, and in summary, this is the reason. This is the same explanation that I showed you via schematic drawing, and we can further summarize it as is. This this portion, this Y-shaped portion, is the internal medullary lamina, which divides into the anterior portion, the medial portion, and the lateral portion. Anterior, so here we have the anterior nuclei, and we have the ventral anterior and the ventral lateral nuclei, which goes to the two motor cortices. The area this area number are 4 and 6. We have the ventral lateral dorsal and the lateral posterior nuclei. We have the ventral posterior lateral nuclei and the ventral posterior medial nuclei, which goes to the somatosensory cortex, area number 3, 1, and 2. Pulvinar is associated with the posterior association cortex, that is the superior parietal lobule, area number 5 and 6, and the inferior parietal lobules. These regions, the posterior regions, are responsible for that. And the lateral genicular body to the visual cortex, that is area number 17, and in the major auditory cortex, area number 41 and 42, and the dorsomedial nucleus, which goes to the prefrontal area, that is 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we have other nuclei, which functions are not well defined. Internal in these the lamina, in the internal medullary lamina, we have the interlaminar nuclei, and in the center portion we have the centrum medianum. Thank you.